Top story. A late-night agreement has apparently been reached between rival taxi associations in Soweto. Operations are still being shut down despite the deal. Well, earlier this week, Gauteng Transport MEC Ismail Vadi announced he was shutting down 6 major taxi routes and ranks for the next 3 months. That's because of violence related to the taxi dispute has left 3 people dead and 6 others injured. Well, it seems news of the agreement has not yet trickled down to police who are in the area. Well, our reporters Malungelo Booi and Tshegohaco Moagi are both in Soweto, different parts of Soweto for us this morning. Let's first go to Malungelo to get an idea of what's happening where he is. Malu, a very good morning to you. Firstly, just a quick idea of where you are and what has happened since we last spoke at 6, where we understand taxi associations saying that there was some kind of agreement, but it doesn't seem like the MEC, that's Ismail Vadi, who put the order for the shutdown in place, is aware of it.
That's right, Yuvi. We are in Perfeni. In fact, there's still a heavy, strong police presence. Earlier, Yuvi, police were actually stopping some of the taxis from actually even loading people. People had to get off those vehicles. Those taxis, there's about 9 or 10 of them. They were packed with commuters, and those commuters had to get off at the instructions of the police because they were saying that the taxi operations have been shut down as a result of violence. And we've seen people running, scrambling really, Yuveka, in trying to find other means of getting to work. In fact, there was one gentleman who came to me, Yuveka, and said straight to me that I must tell MEC Vadi that with his actions he's really killing the commuters, because commuters now are the ones that are struggling. In fact, Yuvi, now I did manage to get a copy of that agreement that these 2 associations, that's Nendue and Wata, signed last night. There's about 4 points really that they are committing to. One of them is working together and making sure that they work with peace, really, and adhering, Yuveka, to the rules of their operating permits. And that has been really the bone of contention with both these taxi associations, saying that they have a right to operate on these routes.
All right, so are we seeing then, Malu, any sort of resistance? Because we had Wayne Minnaar, JMPD, in a little earlier. He says, as far as they know, the order to maintain the shutdown does continue. Obviously, taxi drivers getting a different message since that meeting, that late-night meeting. Are we seeing any resistance? Are we seeing that, you know, there are very angry taxi drivers this morning? And from what you see, are we expecting things to possibly get a little more tense as we go along this morning?
Yuvi, I did actually speak to some few taxi drivers off camera, and they were saying to me that they were told by their associations that they must operate because an agreement has been reached. And I suppose these 2 associations, Yuveka, were saying that because they have reached this association, they would then they would think that things would run as normal. But when I was talking to the spokesperson for the Transport MEC this morning on the phone, she was clear that this shutdown will continue. The MEC has to see this agreement and he has to satisfy himself. It's a sign, though, Yuveka, that the MEC has not seen this agreement, so he can't actually change his mind. But also there has to be a consultation, because remember, the shutdown has been gazetted now, meaning that if people operate here, they're operating illegally and they are in violation, and that means they could be arrested or even fined about 25,000 rand.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks very much, Malungelo Booi. Let's go to Tshegohaco Moagi. She's also in Soweto. Tshegohaco, I believe you are in Dube this morning. Pretty much the same situation, what you heard Malu describe where he is in Perfeni?
Absolutely. Good morning, Yuveka. It really is pretty much the same situation here at the Booi taxi rank. Behind me, you can clearly tell that it is empty here with no taxis operating. But I have spoken to a few commuters who did say that taxis were operating earlier this morning. And there is quite a heavy police presence here as well, with police saying that they will be monitoring this particular taxi rank until about midday, and just to ensure that there aren't any taxis that are operating. I also, Yuveka, spoke to one of the commuters who was actually from work this morning, and just say that I'm wondering how he is actually going to get home because now there are no taxis that are operating. He says that there's no Rea Vaya route that goes through to his home, and he also says that there's no buses, actually Patco buses that go, or trains also that go through to his route. So he did say that he's quite concerned as to how he's going to get home, saying that they understand why there is a shutdown and why the MEC of Transport in Gauteng has shut down these two taxi organizations, but they've also just said that it then affects them directly because there is no way for them to get home or to actually maneuver their way around, either from work to home or vice versa.
All right, Tshegohaco, I mean, just for clarity's sake, when the MEC put the shutdown order in place, obviously the ranks, the taxis are not allowed to operate from those ranks or be at those ranks at all or take the usual routes. But does this mean that taxis can't operate in and around Soweto, picking up passengers on the streets like we usually see them do?
You know, Yuveka, there are a few taxi organizations here in Soweto, and that is exactly what I've also been told by some of the traffic officials when I spoke to them off camera, who said that there are a few taxi operators. We must remember that the two taxi organizations that are actually being stopped from actually operating for about 3 months is Wata and Nandue. So those two organizations have been requested and they've been told not to actually operate. So what is happening at the moment, Yuveka, is as soon as the traffic officials see one of those taxis operating in and around the Soweto area, they are immediately informing them to stop and to offload the passengers and find another place to go park their taxis for the next 3 months, which is the exact directive that the officials have actually gotten from the MEC of Transport, Ismail Vadi.
So what about other taxi associations that operate other taxis? Why will they not be allowed to operate in the area?
Well, the other taxi operations, the other taxi organizations, they're operating as normal. I just saw a taxi now that just drove by, and it is obviously not part of the Wata or Nandue organization. So they are still operating normally. Rea Vaya is also operating normally, and Metro Rail. So it's just these two these two organizations, Yuveka, because we do know of the violence that has taken place, the violence and the rivalry that has taken place between those two organizations. So mainly those two, where Ismail Vadi, the MEC of Transport, saying that he definitely does not want them operating until they are able to actually take a stand that they will work peacefully together. Something that they are telling me as well earlier this morning, that they actually have definitely reached that agreement between each other, but this has obviously not reached the ears of either the MEC or the traffic officials.
And then just clarity for us, Tshegohaco, and I know I'm banging on about this point. So the taxi rank remains close to all associations, or just those two, or is it close to all associations but others can operate on the roads?
At this moment, Yuveka, that is something that we're also trying to get clarification, because the taxi rank behind me is quite empty. But I am told that this is a taxi rank that actually operates mainly, that is actually operated and used mainly by Wata and Nandue. So the other taxi operators are able to operate at the other taxi ranks, as far as I understand it, as long as they are not part of those two organizations.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for that, Tshegohaco. She's at another taxi rank. She's in Booi in Soweto.